So I just wanted to share about my recent real estate transaction that ultimately didn't work out. Uh, I was looking to purchase some land. I do want to build another house at some point in time for myself to live in. And I found a piece of land very close to where I live now, out in Chesapeake. The property was actually on Shillelagh. It was 43 plus acres, so it was a nice chunk of land. And there was even potential to maybe be able to subdivide and cut out a couple more properties that would almost cover the cost of doing everything, or at least help to reimburse. And so I was very excited about it. I was like, oh, this is exactly what I'd like to do, because I developed properties before, so I thought it'd be great to be able to develop and then build my own house there eventually. And the goal was to have a nice piece of land, kind of sit up far from the road. Now, the good thing was this was a huge learning experience. So I got to put the contract down on it with a certain amount of due diligence period, which we ultimately had to extend. And the big hurdle is there's a lot of wetlands out there, and from what I'm learning, it seems like most pieces of bare land, you have to do the delineation on there to prove that it's not wetlands. Which in the past I was not familiar with that concept. So basically, no matter what, you're paying money just to prove that it is not wetlands, which are regulated by the Army Corps of Engineers. And so I hired an environmental engineer because while you can go directly to the Army Corps, I believe there's a lot of things they don't do anymore, and if they do, it's going to take forever. So hired an environmental engineer, and that was the big cost that I also ultimately ended up losing out on, which was about $2,500 that I lost. But again, I gained a lot of information along the way, learned some stuff, and saved myself from making a bad purchase of about $300,000. So hired the environmental engineer, and he showed where, okay, there's these areas here, and there's an area in the back that could be built on. There was already an existing driveway, that part of it touched a little bit of wetlands. So he came up with a good way to make this work and still, protect the environment. Well, he did warn me beforehand that it depends who we get at the Army Corps, because apparently there's one person who just loves to shut down projects, and others who are willing to work with the environmental engineer says and help to make it work. Well, we got that person. And so he basically said, you can build in one spot, which is very, very close to the road, and basically you have a bunch of land behind you. And ultimately that just didn't make any sense to me and wasn't what I wanted to do. So I ended up walking away from the project. I learned a lot though about the way things work with the wetlands and the wetland delineation, because the engineer shared a lot of information with me. Disappointed on the fact that this is kind of a case of what I consider government overreach. The fact that this one person could shut down the whole project. And my environmental engineer shared with me that there's an appeal process, but it just goes to the other people in his office, so it wouldn't be overturned realistically. Now, had I had a lot more money to throw at it, I believe probably could have pushed it through, though I'm not 100% sure on that. But I do know of another project going on in Virginia Beach right now, a big industrial complex that's going in wetlands areas, and they're pushing that through because I believe the city wants it, and of course the corporations have big money to go ahead and just make it work at whatever it costs. Whereas, of course, for me, it cost prohibitive. Besides that, I look back at it and I'm like, well, again, learning experience, disappointed to lose the money, disappointed that I couldn't ultimately do it. I feel bad for the people whose land that is, because the Army Corps has basically taken a lot of the value out of that land now. And that is somewhat of a concern for me, that this one government organization and the way it's organized, basically one person now could diminish the value of people's land. And to me, that seems wrong. While I do see the need to protect the environment, so I'm a little torn on that. However, While things are never completely fair, sometimes they're skewed so far in the opposite direction that it just doesn't make sense. That's my experience, so take it for what it is. And yeah, every real estate deal doesn't always go through, so that's kind of the old saying, you win some, you learn some.